The leadership of the Russian Orthodox Church is much more than a patriarch, his apparatus of the Moscow Patriarchate, the Holy Synod, and even big archbishop councils. Some of the people, especially in the past, are nowadays almost forgotten. However, one of such church leaders is still very important and relevant 45 years after his death. Metropolitan Nikodim was one of the most important church diplomats of the post-war Soviet history. He is known as a spiritual leader and teacher who promoted and personally ordained many key figures in the Russian Orthodox Church, including the current patriarch, no less. Born Boris Rotov in 1929, he grew up in a family of a war veteran and allegedly a Communist Party functionary. After school, Boris started a university but soon after became a monk and dropped out. He started his clerical career as a priest in a village and soon in an old but small town. In 1950, he enrolled in the Leningrad Theological Seminary. That's when he was noted by important church leaders and his career skyrocketed. After graduation, he was appointed for the Russian Orthodox Ecclesiastical Mission in Jerusalem, a very important position symbolically and spiritually. This mission represents the Russian Orthodox Church in the Holy Land, and over the years it had played a vitally important role in the Russian and Soviet diplomacy in the Middle East. After returning to Moscow in 1959, Nikodim became the chief of staff of the Moscow Patriarchate and soon after a deputy chairman of the Department for External Church Relations of the Moscow Patriarchate. This department was headed by the Metropolitan Nikolai since its establishment. This department became one of the key strategic positions within the church leadership, both as the executive body for the church diplomacy and for the internal hierarchy as well. Under the pressure during the Khrushchev's anti-religious campaigns, Metropolitan Nikolai became very critical of the Soviet leadership. Eventually, the Council for the Affairs of the Russian Orthodox Church, the KGB, and other state functionaries pressured the church to get rid of the Metropolitan. His place was taken by Nikodim, promoted to a bishop, who became the leading figure in the church diplomacy and one of the church leaders until his death. Nikodim represented the church in many international bodies, councils, and meetings. He promoted the policy of a peaceful dialogue and Christian ecumenism, for which he was criticized by more conservative clerics. Nikodim interacted and met with 2 or 3 popes in Vatican, negotiated for the participation of the Russian Church in the Second Vatican Council as an observer, and for the diplomatic relationships between Vatican and the Soviet Union. In 1963, he became a Metropolitan of Leningrad and Ladoga. Still functioning as a church diplomat and head of international relations, he engaged in active reforms within his eparchy and the church. He revoked the censorship act that mandated that priests send their sermons to a bishop for approval. And most importantly, he promoted and personally ordained many young and energetic bishops who would later become the church elite, including the future Patriarch Kirill, whom he ordained as a monk, priest, and eventually a bishop. Kirill served as a personal secretary, assistant, and deputy to Nikodim in several positions. The most mysterious part of Nikodim's life is his death. After the election of the Pope John Paul I, Nikodim visited him as a part of the official delegation of the Russian Orthodox Church. A survivor of 2 heart attacks already, Nikodim collapsed during the visit and died at the age of just 48. His body was transported home and buried at the Memorial Cemetery in Leningrad. Nikodim's sudden death, next to the newly elected Pope, became a subject to many controversies. Some claim that God punished him for ecumenism and especially for negotiating with Catholics. Some said that he could be poisoned by Catholics or that he drank the poisoned coffee that was intended for the Pope himself. This version became even more popular when the new Pope died of a similar heart attack just 3 weeks after Nikodim. Metropolitan Nikodim is not completely forgotten. Many of his protégés are amongst the church leaders now, including his favorite, the current Patriarch Kirill. Because of him and other bishops from Nikodim's ordination, the Metropolitan is remembered in books, documentaries, and memoirs. Please like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. You can support my work by joining a paid membership or sending me a super thanks. Thank you, and I see you all next time.